We'll start with 97. What did you think of what McDavid had to say regarding his future yesterday?
To be honest with you, I'm not overly surprised here. He's just coming off of losing his second consecutive chance at a Stanley Cup. In many ways, probably this one is more disappointing than the one last year where they felt like they got their feet wet, that they got the experience that they needed to put them over the top here. They win the Western Conference. There was no hoopla. There was no excitement. It's like, doesn't really matter. We're the Western Conference champions. We got to win the Stanley Cup. And to not win a game in regulation, I think, hit Connor and many of them right between the eyes. So to come out, just a few days later and give it the rah that, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to give this thing another 10 tries if we have to. I'm an Oiler for life and we'll get something done. That's not what I expected out of him. He's left the door open, and that's all it is, just a crack in the door.
And a guy like him with his experience, he's got to know that that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows and bring a lot more attention to the table. And people would, argue, especially on the Oilers side of things, that he would do that to get some leverage and not necessarily money, but the direction of the team, right? And my take on that, if that is in fact the case, if they're on the same page, why would he need to do that in the media at all? It just seemed like he opened up a can of worms for what reason?
I know. It's a legitimate question, Rosie, in terms of, what's to be gained out of it. But I really believe that he just wants to try to be as honest as possible. And we've seen free agents go down certain paths where they can be misleading at times. And I think it's his way of trying to be as honest and open as possible without obviously giving away all the secrets here. So he is in such a powerful position, unlike any other potential free agent, restricted this year, unrestricted the following year. There's no leverage play. He's got all the power in the world here. It's not about money. It's not about picking a destination right now. It's just about, I think, trying to be as transparent as he can without definitively telling everybody what his intentions are.
Do you think there's any chance he doesn't re-sign and plays out the final year of his contract, a la like a Mitch Marner or John Tavares?
Yeah, I think that's what we got out of yesterday, was that there is a window, there is an opportunity, and I have a lot of questions, and eventually I'm going to need answers to them. It could start as early as tomorrow. It could start next week. It could start July or August, or maybe it goes into December. But I think there's a real opportunity here that we see Connor McDavid take his time on what his intentions are.
Mm-hmm. And with the Maple Leafs, Kyper, some decisions to be made in all kinds of different areas. But as far as free agents in July 1, is there something outside of the box or any one you got your eye on that you think would be a good fit for the Maple Leafs?
Yeah. Wow, Rosie, you've seen the list, right? Outside of Marner and Marchand, what's left? Brock Nelson's gone. Brock Besser, we assume, is coming real close to terms with the Minnesota Wild. So you tell me what's out there. And, there's a sense that Brad Treliving is still, on the phones and looking at trade possibilities, but his hands are really tied in terms of what kind of value he has in return on a potential trade. As we know, the cupboards are fairly empty here. What's he got to really play with? Easton Cowan, right? That sits at the top of the list. Can the Leafs afford to move him now and take another crack this year, next year? These are tough decisions, but off the top of my head, I don't see an easy way out of this with a trade, an imminent trade, or just a signing of Brad Marchand, which would be great. I think it would really be good for the Leafs and help them on a short-term basis here, but I'm not sure Brad will be enough.
Kyper, is there a scenario in your mind where the Maple Leafs sit on their cap space? Like, we joke a bit, but like Connor McDavid, you would have to think he'd be on the radar. Do you think we'll find out, like, will there be a telltale sign in the way they use their money in the next couple weeks that they think they actually have a shot at this guy?
I think it would be a mistake to sit on Connor McDavid. And what does that mean? As early as calling Edmonton Oilers and saying, "Hey, listen, if there's a window here, we like to throw our name in the hat." Or do they wait all season long? Do they wait till next July to see if he's available? This team still has to find a way to compete, guys. People are paying an awful big ticket, in the platinums right up to the grays. They got to be a team that gives people the impression that they're right back in the thick of things in the Atlantic, and they're going to take another run at knocking the Florida Panthers off the mountain here. So what does that mean? That you can afford to sit and wait for the pie in the sky of Connor McDavid? And, do you know for sure that he'd even come? Or do you just conduct business as usual here, starting with how to fill the spot of Mitch Marner here? So I think Leaf fans can dream all they want, but so could probably 31 other teams dream as well.
And we were talking about Matthew Nyes before you came on, Kyper, just multi-layers to the Leafs right now. I think that his contract has effect on whether John Tavares comes back and what his contract looks like. When the dust settles and inevitably say they come together, what do you think that contract looks like? Can they get him at 8 years, you think, or is it going to be a bridge deal? Or what's your thought process on Matthew Nyes?
I think they're okay with an 8-year contract. I don't think there's anything wrong with locking this guy up for as many years as they can possibly get. But is it 7.5 or 8 times 8, or is it 10 times 8 or 10.5 times 8? And I think every agent out there is trying to take advantage of a salary cap, jumping tens of millions of dollars in the next 3 or 4 years, and they're going to want to act accordingly. So I do believe, I wrote in my Toronto Star article this week that there seems to be a little bit of a message that maybe the days of handing out perfect contracts to young superstars in the Maple Leaf organization won't be easily available like they've been in the past. Watching what has transpired with Marner and Matthews over the years, where they get term that matches a high ask, is something that they don't want to necessarily hand out easily anymore. So I think there's a little bit of an underlying message here that whether it is no moves or how many years, or when Nyes is first available to have a no trade kick in, what does that look like if they're going to buy UFA years? There's a lot to work out here, and doesn't necessarily mean that a deal's imminent, at least in the next few days, if not before July 1st.
And what's the threat of an offer sheet in your opinion? I know people are talking it about already.
Minuscule for me. That
I agree.
What would it take, Nick? You tell me. Like to offer sheet him and think that the Leafs won't match, you'd have to be over $10 million, would you not?
Yeah, for sure.
And listen, I like Matthew Nyes. I really do. And I think he's going to be a terrific hockey player. But is he an imminent superstar right now? Is he going to score 90 or 100 points? Is he a guy that you got to kind of push a little bit to get him mad or angry? We've seen him passionate. We've seen him fight like he can fight, but can he bring that every night or every other night, opposed to once every 4 or 5 games, and be an intimidating opposing factor that lead the Toronto Maple Leafs? I'm not there yet on Matthew Nyes. I'm not saying he can't get there, but there's a long way to go here to show that you're a $10 or $11 million player for me.
Yeah, and on the other side of things, John Tavares, I'm of the opinion that you bring that guy back and you're going to lose Marner, and I think there's a gaping hole there if it's Marner and Tavares. Um, Everyone's talking about what that figure looks like, and we just saw Duchesne sign for 4.5, and they're pretty damn comparable. Duchesne's a year younger; he had more points than him this year. But there's people who are talking like there's no way it'll start with a 4. It won't start with a 5. What do you think? Are they really far apart, or where do you think the Tavares camp
Yeah,
is at on that?
yeah. I think again, like any other agent, you're not good at your job if you're not shooting for the moon or to squeeze out as much as you can out of the Leafs. But I'm totally with you, Rosie. That excuse me. That's a fair comparable. Matt Duchesne and John Tavares, excellent regular season players, can help you get there. But they're not guys that I'm going to look at as difference makers in the playoffs. And Matt Duchesne didn't do much to help, uh, Dallas when they needed it most. And Tavares has never had a reputation for playing his best hockey in the playoffs. He's never seen the light of day of a conference final. So I'm okay paying for your 60 or 70 points during the regular season, but to warrant $6 or $7 or $8 million here for guys that don't have reputations in the playoffs, to me would be a big mistake. 4.5's okay for me in Dallas, and I think you're in the ballpark for Tavares here in Toronto on a 3 or 4 year deal.
So, Mitch Marner, how did we get here? Curious to sort of get your opinion on how this has played out, how he's going out. Where do you think he ends up? So many questions here.
How did we get here? No different than any other player in any sport in the last 50 years, where you have choices when your contract runs out, and whether they're through ARB as a restricted free agent or unrestricted free agent where you get to pick your own team. That's ultimately what's happened. And Nick and Rosie, I can appreciate everyone's show, including mine, where you want to speculate on why and where did it go wrong and where was he dissed and, what was wrong. Like we can go back a million ways and try to figure out like where it went wrong. But at the end of the day, it looks no different than Reggie Jackson when he left Oakland A's to go to the New York Yankees, man. It's just these guys have choices. And ultimately, some of them have money being at the top of the priority list, and then they work their way down, and others can fit it between 1 and 3 and 4, and that's how we got here. And while Leafs fans can sit there and want to debate on how greedy he is or how selfish he is, or anyone else wants to talk about any other UFA in the past history, go ahead and do it, man. You're just wasting your breath.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, the franchise gave him everything he's ever wanted, and he won't answer a phone call. I mean, not to speculate. We don't want to speculate.
No,
But
they
I
answered
just,
phone calls. He
yeah.
answered phone calls. Yes, he answered phone calls, and they were answered the same way. We're going to July 1st, Nick. The
Yeah.
message was clear all along.
Yeah.
And whether the Leafs really thought, hey, we could change his mind, let's get to a conference final, let them have success in the playoffs. He's a hometown guy. Uh, Maybe that was their game plan all along, that we could get him to change his mind. But it didn't happen, and it kind of played out the way it's played out the last 6 or 7 years, whereas we couldn't get over the Florida Panthers. We've had a couple of tries. Let's blame Marner. Let's blame Matthews. Let's blame this guy and this guy. And at the end of the day, you know what? They just got beat by a better team, no different than the Lightning and no different than Carolina, no different than the Edmonton Oilers. So, it's a little bit more emotional here for sure. They're all going through the same thing on how they got shut down by the Florida Panthers. Point, Kucherov, uh, Sebastian Aho, and now McDavid and Draisaitl. They're all looking like they all look like Mitch Marner's today, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. That's an elite point too, because I think you look even a guy like a Gustav Forsling, man, we're just a beast. Like Edmonton had no response. It reminded me a lot of the Leafs in that game where they just had nothing. They had nothing. You got to credit Florida along those lines. What's the likelihood that one of these guys playing in the Cup final, I would throw Perry in the conversation? Like, do you think it's realistic to suggest Marchand could be a Maple Leaf? I think we saw Sam Bennett rather inebriated last night, but indicate I'm coming back. Like, what's the likelihood of any of these guys coming to Toronto?
Marchand, very good. Yeah. And he's the first one to kind of, if you read between the lines, he's the first one to say, I was underpaid in Boston. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make it up right now. And there is no team on the planet right now that can satisfy the lost income he had probably on the last 3 or 4 years of his Boston Bruin deal than the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I don't know how he doesn't end up a Maple Leaf. Let me put it to you that way.
Fair. Lastly, do you expect any buyouts? I know the window opens today from the Leafs perspective.
I think there's some options here, and whatever happened with David Kampf, that I think that's an option for a buyout. Lawton came in and really took his spot. Yes, buyouts are an option for sure, and I'd start with David Kampf.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.